But there's a lot of things that we can learn about how we can leverage some of these strategies. So, as I mentioned, I grew up in Vancouver, so I'm a big fan of Canadians, and there is a saying that, again, I mentioned it to you yesterday, those of you who were here, but it goes something like this: if you and a friend of yours are being chased by a bear in the forest, you really don't need to outrun the bear. You need to outrun your friend. As long as you're running faster than your friend, you're going to be fine. And the moral of the story is that there's more of these platforms coming on online all the time. So whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Bebo, Plaxo, Orkut, every week it seems like there's a new platform. Don't try to outrun the technology. Outrun your competition. If you stay one step ahead of your competition, then you've really got a chance to capture that wave, because they're going to find you before they find whoever else it is that's in your marketplace. So these are some of the platforms that we're talking about, and as I said, there's many more. These are just a few of them. A few of the big ones. Up here is Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Google, Twitter, Yelp, and FriendFeed. We're going to be talking about some victories in all of these, most of them in any case. But it really boils down to one phrase. And this phrase can apply to everything I'm going to say. It can apply to everything that's going to be said today and everything that was said yesterday for the most part. And that is that conversations are markets. People always ask, how can I access my market on the internet? Where do I find them? Where do I find my audience? Conversations are markets. If you can find the conversation about your product or about your service, that's your market. If you find your conversation and participate in the conversation, that's where it all begins. So if we're going to talk about having this conversation online, we have to go through this just a little bit, the digital divide, particularly for those of you who weren't here yesterday. It's fascinating if you think about if you have kids or if you have parents. In either case, you can think in either way, but there's a few examples here which I think are interesting. First, the internet is less personal. An older person might say the internet is less personal. I don't feel like I'm really connecting on the internet. A young person feels exactly the opposite way. It's more personal to them than meeting face-to-face. It's more personal. Think about that. It's more personal for them to be on somebody's blog than to meet someone at a networking event. Totally opposite perspectives. An older person might say, I need to meet someone face-to-face to really get to know them. But a younger person might say, if I only met someone face-to-face, I don't know anything about them. I know what their handshake was like, what they look like. Who cares what they look like? I got to see their blog to really understand what that person's about. My blog has over 500 pages of stuff on it. It's just a huge, and it's a mess. It needs lots of work, but there's lots of information there. If people see my blog, they know a lot about me. If they meet me in person, they hardly know anything. Just different perspectives. Online transactions are not secure, versus you want me to write you a check, which is a piece of paper that has my account number on it, and my signature, and my address. A young person would say that's crazy. An SSL encryption is much more secure than that. They're totally different, the way the perspectives are. And finally, if an online transaction goes wrong, I have absolutely no recourse, versus if an online transaction goes wrong, I can personally destroy their reputation. These kids are empowered. Guys, a 13-year-old kid can ruin your business. How pissed off would you be if a 13-year-old kid ruined your business by posting a review online that was negative, and that review was on a powerful platform that ranks high on Google, maybe a platform like Yelp, which we talked about yesterday, but which is a platform that's not that heavily used today in Calgary, but it's coming. It's coming. I'm from San Francisco area, Walnut Creek in particular, and Yelp is used like crazy. And if you have a bad review on Yelp, it can really have a dramatic impact on your brand. Now it turns out some people, again, it's an older versus younger perspective. The older people, for the most part, think that any review that someone's going to post is always, going to be negative. Because there's a culture of complaining in that generation. It turns out that actually the opposite is true. 85% of the reviews on Yelp are positive. So that the younger generation in particular is much more interested in causes. to a large extent, and giving positive reviews. They share positive reviews. So there's an opportunity there to capture some of that information, to register your business on Yelp. People can write a review whether you claim your business or not. So if you have a business and say a year from now Yelp is used more here in Calgary, people can write a review whether you're on there or not. Okay, they can register your business, say, yeah, I went to this restaurant, I went to this massage therapist, I went to this lawyer, I went to this dentist, here's what their name was, and they were good, bad, or indifferent. Okay? But you can claim your business on Yelp. You can go to Yelp and you can open your account and you can say, this is my business, and they'll send something to your street address to verify that it's you. Okay? And once it's verified, you can put information there. You can put photos up. If you have a restaurant, you can put an image of your menu. Right? You can have a description. You can have all sorts of things that make your profile more attractive for the people who are on Yelp. And again, today, that audience is so big, however big that is here in this city. But in a year from now, 2 years from now, it's going to grow. In San Francisco, it's huge. It's amazing how massive Yelp has become, literally in the past 2 years in the Bay Area.